200 passengers, 30,000 feet, and a secret that could get them all killed. She smiled at the businessman in 3A. She poured champagne for the woman in first class. She walked those aisles like she belonged there, like she was just another flight attendant on another ordinary Tuesday. But there was nothing ordinary about her. Because the man who controlled half of Seoul's underworld, the one they called the Dragon, the one whose name made grown men fall silent, she shared his bed every night. And the armed gunman who just locked the cockpit door, they knew exactly who she was. This is the story of how one woman's hidden identity turned a routine flight into a war zone, and how the most dangerous man in Asia had to choose between protecting his empire and saving his wife. But here's what nobody expected. She didn't need saving. If you've ever hidden who you really are to protect someone you love, this story will stay with you. Subscribe now because what happens next will change how you see loyalty forever. The Los Angeles International Airport terminal hummed with the chaos of morning departures. Businessmen rushed past with rolling suitcases, phones pressed to ears, already late for meetings that would decide nothing important. Families herded children toward security checkpoints, promising McDonald's and iPad time. A woman in designer heels argued with a gate agent about her seat assignment like it was a matter of life and death. It wasn't. Jasmine knew what life and death actually looked like. And through it all, she walked with the kind of grace that made people look twice. Not the grace of someone trying to be noticed, the grace of someone who had learned to move through dangerous rooms without making a sound. Her navy blue uniform was pressed to perfection, every crease sharp enough to cut. Her heels clicked against the marble floor in a rhythm she had memorized years ago. Confident, but not aggressive. Present, but not memorable. To anyone watching, she was simply a flight attendant for Skyline Airways. Charming, professional, forgettable. But Jasmine Carter had not been forgettable in a very long time. She had simply learned to pretend she was. She paused near gate 47, her reflection catching in the floor-to-ceiling windows. The woman staring back at her looked calm, collected, the kind of woman who smiled at crying babies and calmed nervous flyers. That woman was a lie. The real Jasmine wore a platinum band on her left hand that cost more than most people's houses. The real Jasmine had a husband whose whispered name could empty a room in Seoul. The real Jasmine had learned to speak Korean fluently, to bow at the correct angle, to understand the weight of silence in rooms full of dangerous men. But none of that existed at 30,000 feet. Up there, she was just Jasmine, flight attendant, American, nobody special. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. Jae-min. Be safe today, I have a feeling. She typed back quickly. You always have feelings. I'll be fine. Jae-min. I'm serious. Something feels wrong. Jasmine stared at the message. In 5 years of marriage, her husband had never been wrong about these things. The Dragon didn't survive this long by ignoring instincts. But what could happen on a flight from LA to New York? It was domestic, routine, the same route she had flown dozens of times. She slipped the phone into her pocket and walked toward the gate. If only she had listened. If only she had called in sick. If only she had told him the truth, that she had been feeling it too, that strange heaviness in her chest, that whisper in her mind that said today was different. But Jasmine had spent 5 years pretending to be ordinary, and ordinary women didn't cancel flights because of feelings. She boarded the plane with a smile. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. The first-class cabin filled slowly. Jasmine moved through the aisles with practiced efficiency, hanging jackets, offering drinks, memorizing faces the way her husband had taught her. Always know who's in the room, Jae-min had told her once, his fingers tracing patterns on her back in the darkness of their Seoul penthouse. I'm a flight attendant, not a soldier. He hadn't laughed back. In my world, everyone is a soldier, whether they know it or not. Now, 5 years later, she understood what he meant, because the men in rows 5 through 8 didn't belong. There were 6 of them, Expensive suits, but wrong somehow. Too stiff, like costumes rather than clothes. Their watches were luxury brands, but their hands told a different story. Calloused, scarred. The hands of men who had done violence and would do it again. Jasmine's stomach tightened. She approached row 5 with her service smile locked in place. "Good morning, gentlemen. Can I get you anything before takeoff?" The man in 5A looked up. His eyes were cold, empty, the kind of eyes that had stopped seeing people as people a long time ago. "Water," he said. His accent was faint but present. Korean. Jasmine's blood turned to ice. She kept her face neutral. Of course, still or sparkling? Still. She moved to the next row. Same dead eyes, same wrong energy, same Korean accents hidden beneath American English. 6 men, all Korean, all wrong. This was not a coincidence. She found Beverly Chen, the head flight attendant, near the galley. Beverly was 53, seasoned, the kind of woman who had seen everything and feared nothing. "Bev," Jasmine said quietly. "Rows 5 through 8. Beverly's eyes flickered toward first class, then back. Her expression didn't change, but Jasmine saw the recognition, the concern. "I noticed," Beverly murmured. "They all booked separately, different credit cards, but they knew each other's names at boarding." "What do we do?" Beverly was silent for a moment. "We do our jobs. We watch, and we hope we're wrong." But they weren't wrong. Jasmine knew it in her bones, the same way Jae-min knew things before they happened, the same way she had learned to feel danger like a change in air pressure. These men were here for a reason, and somehow, impossibly, she knew that reason was her. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Flight crew, prepare for departure." Jasmine took her position. The plane began to taxi, and somewhere in first class, 6 men exchanged glances that said the mission was about to begin. She felt it, the danger, the wrongness, but she got on the plane anyway. If you've ever ignored your instincts and paid the price, you understand. Stay with me. This is where everything changes. The plane reached cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign dimmed with a soft chime that sounded almost peaceful. Outside the windows, the world had shrunk to a sea of white clouds stretching to forever. Inside, Jasmine began the longest performance of her life. She served drinks with steady hands, champagne for the businessman who didn't say please, sparkling water for the woman who complained it wasn't cold enough. She smiled at passengers who had no idea they were sitting in a pressure cooker, who scrolled through movies and complained about legroom while danger sat 12 rows ahead. She walked past the 6 men in first class like they were just businessmen, just travelers, just ordinary people going to New York for ordinary reasons. But every time she passed row 5, she felt their eyes on her. Watching, waiting, counting. The man in 5A, she had started thinking of him as the leader, tracked her movements with the patience of a predator who had all the time in the world. He never spoke to her directly, never made a scene, never gave any obvious sign that she was anything other than another uniformed servant bringing him his water. But his attention was constant, suffocating, like a hand slowly closing around her throat. Jasmine had felt this before. In Seoul, at parties filled with men whose smiles never reached their eyes. In the quiet moments when Jae-min's phone would ring and his face would change and she would know without asking that someone had died. She knew what danger felt like, and this plane was drowning in it. Jasmine retreated to the galley. Her hands were shaking. "You okay?" Beverly appeared beside her, voice low. "No." Jasmine gripped the counter. "Something's wrong, really wrong." I called the captain, told him we might have a situation. He's keeping the cockpit locked. "It's not enough." The words came out before Jasmine could stop them. "Bev, these men, they're not random. They're here for something specific." Beverly studied her face. "How do you know?" "Because I'm married to someone like them. Because I know how they move, how they think, how they hunt." But she couldn't say that, so she said nothing. The plane hit turbulence. Passengers gasped. Coffee cups rattled. And then, a sound that didn't belong. Banging on the cockpit door. Jasmine's heart stopped. "Stay here," Beverly commanded, already moving toward the front. But Jasmine followed. She had to see. She had to know. The first-class cabin had transformed. The 6 men were on their feet, no longer pretending. Weapons had appeared from nowhere, small, compact, deadly. The passengers around them sat frozen, too shocked to scream. The leader stood at the cockpit door, a device in his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, this aircraft is now under our control. If you cooperate, you'll live. If you don't..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Jasmine stood paralyzed in the aisle. Every instinct screamed at her to hide, to blend in, to become invisible like she had practiced for 5 years. Then the leader's eyes found her, and he smiled. "There she is," he said softly in Korean, "the dragon's wife, just like they promised." The words hit her like bullets. They knew. They knew who she was. This wasn't a random hijacking. This wasn't about money or politics or terrorism. "On your knees," the leader ordered. The passengers dropped instantly. Businessmen, families, elderly couples, all of them crumbling like paper in the rain. But Jasmine didn't move. She couldn't. Her legs had turned to stone, her mind racing through 5 years of careful deception. Every flight, every fake smile, every moment she had convinced herself that her 2 lives could stay separate. It had all been a lie. "I said kneel." The leader walked toward her slowly, deliberately. "Unless you want to test how serious we are." He gestured to one of his men, who pressed a gun to the temple of an elderly man in 4C. The man whimpered. His wife clutched his hand, tears streaming silently. Jasmine's heart cracked. She sank to her knees. "Good." The leader crouched in front of her, studying her face like she was a painting in a museum. "You're prettier than the photos. I can see why he chose you." "Who are you?" Her voice came out steady, surprising even herself. "Someone who knows your husband very well." His smile widened. "Someone he trusted once." The words clicked into place. A rival, someone from Jamin's past, someone close enough to know about her, to plan this, to wait. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted." His eyes hardened. "Everything he took from me." He stood and addressed the passengers in English. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the inconvenience. We're not here to hurt you. We're here for one person only." He pointed at Jasmine. "This woman is the wife of a very powerful man, a man who has something I need, so we're going to make a simple trade." Murmurs rippled through the cabin. Passengers stared at Jasmine with new eyes. Confusion, fear, accusation. She felt their judgment like physical weight. The flight attendant, the ordinary woman, the lie. "Her husband will pay any price to get her back," the leader continued. "And if he doesn't, well, we have 200 other bargaining ships at 30,000 feet. He pulled out a phone. "Time to call the dragon." Jasmine's mind raced. Jamin would burn the world to save her, she knew that without question. But at what cost? How many enemies would mobilize if they sensed weakness? How many allies would reconsider their loyalty? And the passengers, innocent people, families, all because of her, all because she had fallen in love with a man whose world devoured everything it touched. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "Whatever he took from you. He took everything." The leader's voice cracked, revealing something raw beneath the control. "My family, my future, my name. He destroyed it all, and didn't even have the decency to kill me." He leaned close, his breath hot on her face. "So now I'm going to take the only thing he loves, and when he comes for you, and he will, I'm going to make him watch as I take that too." He's not just a hijacker, he's a ghost from her husband's past, and his revenge isn't about money, it's about pain. If you've ever seen love turn into the most dangerous weapon, subscribe. This isn't just a story, it's a warning. The phone rang 3 times before Jamin answered. "Who is this?" His voice was ice, pure control, the voice of a man who had faced death so many times it had become boring. The leader smiled and switched Korean. Hello, old friend. It's been a long time. Silence. Then, Park Sung-ho, I thought you were dead. You hoped I was dead. There's a difference. Jasmine's blood ran cold. Park Sung-ho. She had heard that name once whispered between Jaemin and his father in the early days of their marriage, a name that made even the dragon's father go quiet. What do you want? Jaemin's voice hadn't changed, but Jasmine knew him well enough to hear the tension beneath it. I want what you took, but since that's impossible, I'll settle for something else. Sung-ho held the phone toward Jasmine. Say hello to your husband. Her throat tightened. Jaemin. The silence that followed was worse than any words. She could feel his fear through the phone, his rage, his love, all of it compressed into that single moment of nothing. Then his voice, softer than she had ever heard it. Jasmine, are you hurt? No, not yet. I'm coming for you. Don't! The word escaped before she could stop it. He wants you to come. It's a trap. Sung-ho laughed and pulled the phone back. Smart woman. You chose well, dragon. But it won't matter. You have 6 hours to transfer everything. Every business, every account, every territory to the accounts I'm about to send you. Or this plane goes down. If you hurt her, 6 hours. Sung-ho ended the call. He turned to Jasmine with something like respect in his eyes. You told him not to come. Interesting. Most wives would beg. I'm not most wives. No, you're not. He gazed lingered, then walked away, leaving her on her knees surrounded by terrified passengers and the crushing weight of a truth she could no longer escape. She wasn't just Jasmine anymore. She wasn't just a flight attendant. She was a target, a weapon, a chess piece in a game that had been playing out since before she was born. And in 6 hours, someone was going to die. The only question was who. The passengers had been herded to the back of the plane. Economy class became a holding pen. 200 people crammed together, guarded by men with guns and empty eyes. But Jasmine had been kept in first class. Special treatment for the VIP, Sung-ho had joked. She sat in 2A, wrists zip-tied, watching the clouds drift past the window like nothing in the world was wrong. Beverly appeared beside her, escorted by one of the gunmen. Her face was pale, but determined. They're letting me check on passengers, Beverly said quietly. Are you okay? No. Jasmine met her eyes. Bev, I need to tell you something. Whatever it is, it can wait. It can't. Jasmine swallowed. I'm not who you think I am. Beverly's expression didn't change. Honey, I've known something was different about you since your first flight. Nobody's that calm in turbulence unless they've seen worse. I'm married to a man, a powerful man. These people, they're here because of him, because of me. The Korean Mafia. Jasmine's shock must have shown on her face. Beverly almost smiled. I've been flying for 30 years. You'll learn to read people. And you, she glanced toward the back of the plane, you move like someone who's learned to survive. I never wanted this. I never wanted any of this. I know. Beverly squeezed her bound hands. But here we are. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? What was she going to do? For 5 years, she had been passive. She had let Jae-min protect her, hide her, build walls around her life. She had played the role of innocent wife, untouched by the blood and darkness of his world. But the walls were gone now. The mask was shattered, and 200 innocent people were counting on someone to save them. I need to get to the cockpit, Jasmine whispered. If I can reach the pilots. The cockpit's locked. They haven't breached it yet. The captain's in contact with the ground, but... Beverly hesitated. They're talking about shooting it open. Jasmine's mind raced. Jae-min had taught her things over the years. Small things. How to read a room, how to identify weak points, how to stay calm when everything was chaos. But he had also taught her something else, something she had never had to use. how to fight. "Bev," she said slowly, "I need you to trust me." "With what?" "Everything." She spent 5 years hiding, pretending, being small. But sometimes the only way to survive is to become the thing everyone underestimated. If you've ever had to show the world who you really are, you know what's coming. Don't miss it. 3 hours remained. Jasmine had spent the time watching, learning, memorizing the patterns of the gunmen, the timing of their rotations, the moments when attention slipped. Her hands were still bound, but her mind was free. And then she saw something that changed everything. One of the gunmen, the youngest, barely more than a boy, pulled out his phone during a lull in patrols. He typed something quickly, then deleted it, but not before Jasmine caught a glimpse of the recipient. A Korean name she recognized. Her heart stopped. The name belonged to someone in Jae-min's inner circle, someone who had been at their wedding, someone who had smiled at her across dinner tables and called her sister. Minji. Jaemin's cousin, the one who had helped her learn Korean, the one who had held her hand during Jaemin's father's funeral, the one she had trusted. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. Minji had fed them information, routes, schedules. She knew exactly which flight Jasmine would be on, exactly when she would be vulnerable. Family. Blood. Betrayal. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Sung-ho stood over her, arms crossed. "Minji," Jasmine breathed. "She's the one. She told you everything." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "Clever, yes. Your husband's beloved cousin has been mine for years, ever since he killed her brother." Jasmine's stomach dropped. "What? Didn't he tell you?" "Of course not. The dragon keeps his sins private." Sung-ho sat across from her. 10 years ago, Minji's brother betrayed your husband's father. Small things. Information sold, deals sabotaged. When they found out, he drew a finger across his throat. Jae-min did it himself, to prove his loyalty, to show his father he could be cold enough to lead. The words didn't make sense. Jaemin, her Jaemin, had killed someone? A family member? But even as she denied it, she knew it was true. She had always known there was blood on his hands. She had just chosen not to look. "Minji never forgave him," Sung-ho continued. "She waited, planned, found me. And now, here we are." "She'll destroy herself too, if Jaemin finds out." "He won't, because by the time this is over, the dragon will have nothing left." He leaned forward. "Including you." Jasmine felt something shift inside her. Not fear, not despair. Rage. Pure, clean, clarifying rage. She had spent 5 years being protected, being sheltered, being the innocent wife who didn't ask questions. No more. "You think you know my husband," she said quietly, "but you don't know me." Sung-ho laughed. "What could you possibly do? You're a flight attendant." "I was a flight attendant." She held his gaze without blinking. "Now, I'm something else entirely." 2 hours left. Jasmine had spent the time whispering to Beverly, to the other flight attendants, to the passengers who could listen without being caught, building something small but powerful. Hope. "There are 6 of them and 200 of us," she had told Beverly in the galley, voice barely audible over the plane's engines. "They can't watch everyone. They can't control everyone. Not if we move together." "They have guns, Jasmine." "And we have numbers and surprise and something worth fighting for." She had grabbed Beverly's hands. "Those people back there, the grandmother traveling to see her new grandbaby, the college kid going home for Christmas, the couple celebrating their anniversary, they're counting on someone to do something. If not us, then who?" Beverly had been quiet for a long moment. Then she had nodded. Now, as the clock ticked towards 0, the pieces were in place. The signal was simple. The overhead lights would flicker when Beverly reached the circuit breaker in the back galley. 3 flickers, then darkness. In that darkness, everything would change. Jasmine watched the leader from her seat. Sung-ho had grown confident, almost lazy, pacing the first-class aisle like he was already celebrating his victory. He believed he had won. He believed Jae-min would capitulate, transfer everything, and come crawling to save his wife. He had no idea who he was dealing with. The lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. Darkness swallowed the cabin like a held breath. And Jasmine moved. She had practiced the motion 1,000 times in her mind, during the endless waiting, during the moments when fear threatened to swallow her whole. Her bound hands came up, caught the zip tie on the exposed screw of her armrest, pulled hard. Pain shot through her wrists as plastic bit into skin. Then, snap. Free. Around her, chaos erupted like a symphony of survival. Passengers rose like a wave, 200 people who had spent hours as victims, finally becoming something else. Flight attendants threw coffee pots that shattered against skulls, wine bottles that connected with shoulders and arms. An elderly man tackled the gunman nearest to him with the fury of someone who had survived too much to die here. The gunman shouted, fired blindly into the darkness, but there were too many targets, too much movement, too much desperate courage filling every inch of the cabin. Jasmine found the youngest gunman, the one with the phone, the one who had betrayed them all for a cousin's vengeance, and hit him in the throat with her elbow. The move was instinct, muscle memory from training sessions with Jae-min that she had never expected to use. He went down gasping, weapon clattering. She grabbed it. The metal was cold in her palm, real, heavy with possibility. The emergency lights kicked on, bathing everything in crimson. Sung-ho stood in the aisle, eyes wild, gun raised at a mother clutching her child. "Everyone stop! Stop, or I'll—" "You'll what?" Jasmine stepped forward, her weapon steady, her voice steady, everything steady, because there was no room for anything else. "Your husband taught you well," he said softly. "He taught me everything. Then you know how this ends. One of us has to die." "I know." She pulled the trigger. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him backward. Not a kill shot. Deliberate. "But not today," she said. "Today, you're going to answer for what you've done. All of it." The remaining gunmen were overwhelmed within minutes. Passengers who had been terrified became heroes. The cockpit door finally opened, the pilots emerging to find a plane that had saved itself. And in the middle of it all stood Jasmine, not hiding anymore, not pretending, finally, completely herself. She didn't wait to be saved. She became the one who saves. If you've ever watched someone underestimate you and wished you could show them who you really are, this is that moment. Subscribe, because there's still one question left unanswered. The plane landed at JFK under fighter escort. 2 F-16s had appeared somewhere over Pennsylvania, shadows against the darkening sky, a reminder that the whole world had been watching, even if the passengers inside hadn't known. Emergency vehicles lined the runway. Fire trucks, ambulances, black SUVs with tinted windows that screamed federal jurisdiction. News helicopters circled like vultures, cameras zooming, reporters already crafting their stories about the miracle flight. But Jasmine saw none of it. She saw only him. Jae-min stood on the tarmac, surrounded by men in black suits who looked ready to level a building if he gave the word. His face was carved from stone, betraying nothing, the mask of the dragon, the face that made empires tremble. But his eyes, those eyes that had first captured her in a Los Angeles nightclub 5 years ago, the night she had thought she was just flirting with a handsome stranger, his eyes told her everything. Relief so deep it looked like pain, fear that hadn't left him for hours, pride that made her heart crack, and love. God, so much love that she wondered how she had ever doubted, ever questioned, ever felt alone. All of it compressed into a single look that said more than 1,000 words ever could. She walked down the stairs on shaking legs. The passengers filed out behind her, alive, safe, some of them crying, some of them clutching loved ones who had rushed the tarmac, all of them breathing because she had made a choice, because she had stopped hiding. Jamin met her halfway. His hands cupped her face with impossible gentleness, fingers that had done terrible things, touching her like she was made of glass. "You were supposed to hide," Jamin whispered in Korean, his voice cracking on the words. "You were supposed to stay invisible. That was the plan. That was always the plan." Plans change. "Jasmine!" "I was supposed to survive, Jamin." She pressed her forehead to his, feeling the tension in his body, the way he held himself like he might shatter if he let go. "You did more than survive." His forehead pressed against hers. "You saved them. All of them." "Someone had to." "It should have been me. I should have—" "You couldn't," she pulled back to look at him. "But I could. And that's what you never understood, Jamin. You spent 5 years protecting me from your world. But I was already part of it, from the moment I loved you." Something cracked in his expression, the control he had maintained for decades finally breaking. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything, for the secrets, for the danger, for making you—" "Don't," she kissed him softly. "I chose this. I chose you. And today, I chose myself too." Behind them, Sung-ho was being loaded into an ambulance, federal agents closing in. He would face justice, not the Mafia's kind, but the system's. Jasmine had made sure of that. "There's something else," she said quietly. "Minji. She was the leak." Jamin went still. "How?" "Her brother. The one you—" She didn't finish. The silence between them filled with ghosts. All the things he had never told her, all the blood he had tried to keep from her hands. "I didn't want you to know," he finally said. "I didn't want you to see me as a monster." She shook her head. "I married a man with darkness in his past. That doesn't make him a monster. It makes him human. And what do I do about Minji?" Jasmine thought about it. The cousin who smiled while plotting her death. The woman who let vengeance consume everything. "You let the law handle it," she said. "No more blood. Not for me." Jamin studied her face. Then slowly, he nodded. "For you," he agreed. "Anything." 6 months later, Jasmine stood on the balcony of their Seoul penthouse, watching the city lights glitter like fallen stars scattered across velvet darkness. 23 floors below, the streets pulsed with life, couples walking hand in hand, businessmen rushing home, food vendors calling out their wares. None of them knew what happened on that plane. The news had reported a security incident resolved without casualties. The passengers had been sworn to silence with generous settlements and ironclad NDAs. But Jasmine remembered. She remembered every second. The weight of the gun in her hands, heavier than she expected, lighter than it should have been for something that could end a life. The sound of Sung-ho hitting the ground, his blood spreading across the first-class carpet like spilled wine. The faces of 200 people who had looked at her, really looked at her, and seen someone worth believing in. Someone worth following into the dark. "You're thinking too loud." Jamin appeared beside her, 2 glasses of wine in hand. He had aged in the past months, gray threading through his black hair in ways that made her heart ache. The incident had cost him more than anyone knew. Not just money or territory or leverage, but something deeper. The certainty that he could protect her by keeping her separate from his world. That illusion was gone now, shattered beyond repair. But he was still here, still hers, still looking at her like she was the most miraculous thing he had ever seen. "I'm thinking about choices," she said, accepting the glass. The wine was expensive, something French, something rare, but she barely tasted it. "What about them?" "I spent 5 years being your secret, your hidden wife, the woman nobody knew." She turned to face him fully, needing him to understand. "I can't do that anymore." "I know." The world knows who I am now, at least some of it. There's no going back to invisible. Would you want to? She considered the question seriously, the way she considered everything now. The quiet life she had tried to build, the early morning flights, the polite passengers, the anonymous existence she had worn like armor. It seemed so small now, so limited, so much like a cage she had built for herself because she was afraid of what might happen if she stopped hiding. No, she admitted. I wouldn't. Jamin set down his glass and took her hands. His palms were warm, calloused, and steady, hands that had done terrible things and gentle things, and would probably do both again before this life was over. Then don't. Stand beside me, not behind me. Let them see what I see. A woman who saved 200 lives with her bare hands. A woman who faced down my worst enemy and won. A woman who was worth more than any empire I could ever build. They'll come for me, others like Sung-ho, people who want to hurt you through me. Let them come. His eyes were fire, pure, consuming, absolute. Let them see what happens when they threaten the dragon's wife. She laughed softly, despite everything, despite the danger, despite the uncertainty, despite the future stretching ahead of them like an unwritten story. Is that supposed to be romantic? Is it working? She kissed him instead of answering. Let that be her response. Let that be her choice. Below them, Seoul pulsed with life and danger and possibility. Tomorrow would bring new threats, new challenges, new shadows to navigate. There would be enemies and allies and moments that tested everything they were. But tonight, in this moment, Jasmine finally understood something her husband had tried to tell her for years. Hiding doesn't keep you safe. It just delays the reckoning. True strength comes from standing in the light, scars, secrets, and all, and daring the world to look away. It won't, because some people are too powerful to ignore, and she had finally become one of them. This story was never about a hijacking. It was about a woman who learned that the walls we build to protect ourselves eventually become prisons. Jasmine spent 5 years invisible. It took one day to become unforgettable. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the masks you wear and the truths you hide, then you understand why we tell these tales. Subscribe to Tales by Wave because every story we share carries a message worth hearing. And the next one, it might just change your life. You stayed until the end. That tells me something. You're not here for ordinary stories. You want the ones that hit different, the ones that stay with you at 2 a.m. If that's you, subscribe now, because the next story I'm dropping, it's even more intense than this one. Don't say I didn't warn you. Hiding doesn't keep you safe. It just delays the reckoning. True strength comes from standing in the light, scars, secrets, and all, and daring the world to look away.